I think we made it. Always a technical challenge to kick this thing off, but fist bumps that started off as usual. The crew's here. And we've got a semi-modern take on a classic, I think, actually, right? So we'll get Walter to explain why he picked Deftones. It's a good song, so hang on here. And that's the high-tech element of it. Is
solid fade.
Right? Solid fade. So, yeah, here we are, episode 3. And opening the Echo Chamber podcast through the OGA Athletics platform with our first young guard athlete guest, Walter Somers.
Cheers. Feels good to be here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And for those that can't see the resemblance, maybe the for obvious reasons. But for those that are just listening, the last name is the same as mine, and that's because he's my oldest son. But he's here for a lot more than that. So, welcome. And we got the usual OGA crew here, so that's excellent as well. I think when we were talking about this episode, the two parts that we wanted to kind of cover were, we've talked amongst ourselves that OGA Athletics, lifetime of athletic pursuit, I mean, it encompasses this idea that you're going to do this for your entire life. And so in our case, we throw out the metric that we've been at it for 4 decades or 40,000 hours. And then that loose connection to Napoleon, this idea that there's a pipeline of other OGA athletes coming, but they're not at that metric of decades yet, maybe 4 decades, 3 decades, 2 decades. So they get called, in terms of campaigns, middle guard and young guard. And so the episode prior, we had the first middle guard representative, which was Ryan Bruce, and he was in his mid-30s. And then I think the reason that OGA Athletics as a platform can really connect for a lot of people and kind of going forward is you need to also talk to and learn from the young generation that's starting on this, that someday Walter will be where we are, and hopefully he'll be having a conversation with people that are his age. And that's something that I know when we talked in our first episode, we didn't really have that reference point, and I think it's cool now as you get that young guard in here, not only to represent that group, but also to share things with us and that we can learn. So, I think that's the first part, was to get Walter's perspective on why you kind of want to sit at the table under OGA Athletics. And the second part is you participated in the one element of my lifetime of athletic pursuit, which is this bodybuilding story and the film campaign on. Ryan was here in episode 2 talking about the making of it, and Walter was one of the main characters. And I know that you guys have questions to ask him about his role, but also his perspective on that and what it meant to him, and I'm going to be an interested observer for that. So that kind of frames the 2 parts of the conversation today. But first, most simple one is, why did you pick Deftones in that song?
I don't know. There's no really deep meaning behind Changes by Deftones. I really enjoy it, but I could always make a fake scenario of, someone that changes in front of your eyes and kind of gives you feel to try something else and push a lot harder than gym or anything outside that extracurricular, but nothing really deep around the changes part.
But how did you, Deftones is our generation.
I don't know.
How did you find that music?
Do you guys know the Trent Twins, or do your sons watch those guys?
I know who they are.
You know?
I read about them.
Well, that's exactly where I got the songs from.
Really? The Trent Twins. Who deny using Trent?
Yeah, exactly. They promote it now, which is crazy, but that's where I got. But there's no really crazy deep meaning behind it.
Well, actually, but you talk about the transfer of knowledge and stories. I mean, I grew up with the Deftones. I mean, even older than that, but I hadn't thought of them. And then when Walter started playing it, now I've been listening to it on loop. So it's cool because you brought the music back to me, and I've just been listening to it for the last month, just nonstop. So it's pretty cool.
It was either that or Everlong was my other
Foo
choice.
Fighters.
Yeah, Foo Fighters.
Yeah, what's old is new, eh?
Yeah.
It's coming back.
There's hope for this generation.
Yeah.
You guys are lifting, listening to decent music.
Yeah.
I had it all wrong.
So So I guess the question we asked Ryan Bruce when he was here as a middle guard, why, when you've listened to us ramble about old guard athletics and old guard, young guard, middle guard, why do you think that you represent the young guard mentality?
Well, I don't know. I guess I'll just introduce myself to the viewers. I have no idea who the hell I am, but yeah, like I'm the old man's son, Walter Somers.
Which one?
I'm the oldest son.
I struggled with the age in the last episode. You are 22, turning 23.
22, turning 23 in May. So I've got a huge background in just kind of athletics my whole life. I've been playing hockey since I was a little kid, pretty much like the Canadian lifestyle. Played for like around 16 years, and then shifted over my focus to rugby. So I'm on that pursuit of trying to craft my perfection in that. But attending school right now, my 4th year, gonna, I guess, graduate with a degree in finance in December, which is awesome. Currently working for Nutrin as the portfolio financial analyst on the side, kind of getting my corporate background, and then all the stuff of can't turn it off is kind of where it leads to the gym, where I'm always finding time to either like I said, craft my pursuit in something great. Right now it's rugby for me, so I'm really trying to perfect that. In the past, we'll get more into that, was the whole bodybuilding, my journey with that, and his journey with it, I guess. But that's just a little bit about myself. And then kind of being here, I wanted to sit at this table just because, I don't know, there's just so much knowledge at this table that I'd love to hear from you guys and give my input on your kind of questions and answer whatever you guys have. But I always like to kind of, mix my knowledge, the young knowledge, the old knowledge, the middle knowledge together and kind of create something I think viewers would, appreciate or see from a different angle, from different views of, experience and humbleness and such. So we'll see. Yeah,
it's a whole different world out there now. We fell in love with athletics from the Joe Weider book that we maybe got at the library.
Yeah.
And you're following, Instagrammers and influencers.
The Trend Twins. I just tried to buy Smilex or Cybergenics. Do you guys?
Cybergenics, absolutely.
Where Smilex was like some deer antler stuff you put on your tongue. And that was in 1989, and you could get that through some of those magazines. But not to the Trend Twins are one thing, and maybe aren't the best guys to take advice from, but there's more knowledge out there now than there was when we were there.
Oh yeah.
And it came sporadically, monthly, and was questionable. And now you can get all the questionable information you want at your fingertips.
So did you just wake up one day and kind of figure out that you were a freak like us and wanted to work out every day and do sports and get after it and can't turn it off?
I guess because I was born in Singapore and hockey in Singapore is non-existent. You're literally on the equator. It's 30 degrees, no such thing as snow and ice. So I didn't do a whole lot of hockey, but my Grandpa Somers, for Christmas, he would buy us many sticks. And I guess that's when I first touched the hockey stick, and that's when our patio was massive, so we would just kind of play, shitty on the patio with my brother. And then when we moved over to Canada, I remember just touching snow for the first time, get my first frostbite. And I don't really know how I transitioned into hockey, but I just remember kind of that's where my whole, I guess, the second chapter of my whole life just really started, was when Dad took me to the rink. And I met all these kids that's, they've already have, 3 years of hockey experience under their belt. And then coming in with kind of no idea how to play, I was able to catch along pretty fast, with starting with figure skating and then moving my way up to competitive hockey. And then I just kind of started doing that, and then Dad took me to Ironworks, where I currently, so I've been there for now 14 years, which is crazy. So I've been going to that gym for a long time, and Dad's the reason why I'm kind of at the gym. And I started kind of 14 years is pretty nuts. And
we are old guard.
And it's just kind of funny. I don't know. As soon as I start seeing changes, a kid that's 13, his ego starts to go up. You're looking a little pretty good compared to other people. So you keep at it. And then I also realized that this gym is more important than just building muscle, looking good, but transition over to hockey. And I was always finding myself doing that little extra 1% in the gym. I feel like I had that kind of step on other people. I was always kind of taking my off season a little bit more serious. Even during the season, just finding times on my own to go to the gym and kind of just perfect my craft. But
Did you use it as a supplement to sport or something that you kind of ran in parallel because you were so passionate, because you were starting to see gains and
That was
what your dad was doing?
That was the one thing where I found I was using it as a supplement for hockey.
We're gonna get the blast.
All right.
For the people
With hockey, but I realized that later in my career of hockey, I started finding myself in the gym for other reasons but hockey. Like, you don't see hockey players doing dumbbell curls, you don't see them doing, bench press. So that started shifting later into my career where I'm like, oh wow, I'm starting to really love this whole bodybuilding aspects, where training for hockey wasn't as important, but I still did it, but I wasn't looking forward to it. And then once COVID hit, that's where I kind of transitioned my whole perspective to bodybuilding, and that's where I'm in the gym for most of the time.
So now moving into rugby, are you like too big? Are you like able to get around the pitch?
What position do you play?
Centers. So I like to get the ball and honestly just give me the ball and I'll go score for you. That's literally my motto. Just get the ball, run. But I just find everything I do in the gym has translated over to rugby. Crazy. Like, I guess like the best example for me is just everything I do is super controlled. So I guess like the hamstring leg curl where you're seated and you curl it, that mimics a running motion. I've realized that when you run, you're kind of gripping the grass using your hamstring pull. So if I can load as much weight on that with as much control and just forcing it, and then once I put on the pitch, I have no weights on me. So it's just all muscle memory and just going as fast as you can.
Are you worried about getting hurt every time I jump on a mountain bike or, whatever?
I mean,
I'm like, oh man, is this going to hurt my training if I crash?
For sure. But I've seen Dad at his, injuries. I mean, I know what it's like. I've
biceps
seen it.
attached.
Exactly. And I've had some pretty brutal injuries with hockey, but I'm not too worried about that. It would suck, but I just think I've got that mental capacity where it's always just a stepping stone. Because I remember when I broke my ankle, outside of hockey, it kind of put me on a huge, backseat of where I have to really work on the gym side. And I guess that's another part where I started getting to the gym because I couldn't play hockey. I was in the gym getting, putting on extra size, and I realized, this is kind of an opportunity for me to be a little bit bigger than other kids. So I don't fear injuries. If anything, they're kind of just a tool or not a tool, but a step back to appreciate what you have and what you can learn from it and just get better.
It also changes your perspective on
Exactly.
how you train and how you train to prevent injury. And
Yeah, for sure. That's kind
of... You, a couple of sports you mentioned, did you play hockey, John?
I mean, not to that level.
So in particular, rugby and bodybuilding
are
two sports you gravitate to. How much of an inspiration was your dad for that? Or did he
bodybuilding, not at all. Piss all. Rugby, I come to him. I try to kind of text him before my games or just kind of hear his feedback. But rugby for sure, because he played at the national level for Singapore, so he knows rugby. Where bodybuilding, he can live his fantasy.
So I guess sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, how much has the game changed there? Because
with rugby?
No, with bodybuilding. Because I used to train with your dad back in the 90s, and he was an inspiration to me because he's strong, fit, looked great, that type of thing, and it was all about discipline and how you eat, and we didn't have the assortment of supplements or information out there that was influencing how we were training. And we would just talk to one another at the gym about how we're doing things and hey, can you help me with this, or how are you eating? I used to get up in the middle of the night and drink raw eggs because I thought that was the ticket for my 160-pound body to be bigger. And now, you've got so much.
Oh yeah, 100%. There. I think the biggest thing in my area is this whole science-based lifting. You've probably heard it before, but just you've got this guy. His name's Jeff Nippert. He's a huge YouTuber, but he just looks at specific journal articles and does research on the best scientific ways to put on muscle. And everyone kind of flames on it just because you look at him, he's not like the mass monster you see in the golden era, but scientific basic or lifting is kind of grown where people are really trying to put on as much muscle without taking the PEDs. But it always kind of falls back on the golden era where, F the technique, just load the weight up and just put on some mass. And I find it always falls back on that. So there hasn't been a lot of changing there, except there's always a certain way you can kind of try to push something or pull something. But you're right, the discipline's still the same. If not, it's even harder just because everyone's got the PED, so you have to figure out what matches with your body. But bodybuilding, I don't think has really changed. I mean, if it's changed, then everyone would look kind of like a little freakier than usual. And I think the golden era was the best. Everyone looked like Ronnie Coleman, those guys. And then people now, it's just, I think I saw a video, like Ronnie Coleman even mentioned, like, it looks like the guys today have never been on a diet. They just look kind of fluffy washed, just a big belly, just nothing really symmetry about them.
So what's interesting is what is your time period for golden era?
Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, like that area.
So we got to go to this guy because this is the OG on the whole thing.
Yeah, the original golden is the 60s with
Arnold,
Frank Zane.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
Dave Draper and those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even go back to like Steve Reeves,
yeah.
right? I mean, Larry Scott, first Mr. Olympia. I mean, you're going way back.
Yeah.
I think is the definition of bodybuilding, which I think in today's era is classic bodybuilding. This open bodybuilding is just too much. Everyone's just so out of, shape, doesn't look like nice. I don't know. I just think...
Have you competed in bodybuilding?
Yeah, I did. So 2022, I competed in my first show. Was able to win my class out of 7 people, and then I went up against the previous winner of last year and came second to him. But that guy just had this crazy muscle density and just had so much more maturity in his muscles. But I don't know. That was my first experience of bodybuilding, and I just fell in love with it. It was such a great time.
Judging from previous comments, and to bring back a little bit, it sounds like, but you can clarify for me, that you would be more likely to take advice from your dad about rugby than you would be to take it about bodybuilding. I'd have to finish the sentence.
100%. I mean, we can definitely get into the whole campaign on and
I'm here. And I guess if it's okay to start that line of questioning, I'm curious why the distinction. I know a little bit about what he's done in rugby. I certainly understand.
Yeah.
Because I've been around the Prairie Mecca, as we call Ironworks Gym, and know that part of it. And I have, and I'm not, no judgment. I don't know what the difference between his advice from one or the other would be for me personally. But fathers and sons have a dynamic that is difficult to understand.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear what you have to say about why that difference is.
I guess we'll go way back to I guess we'll start talking about the campaign on and my thoughts on it.
We're here already, eh?
I'm here already.
We got welcome to part 2 with you.
Anyway, maybe before we because this is what a lot of people are waiting for. But before we get into this, we talked before you arrived that we've, through this podcast, started to introduce this concept that there's this documentary about my kind of commitment to my lifetime of athletic pursuit, which is bodybuilding. And so there's this film called Campaign On. Ryan, the director-producer, was on the last episode. Walter is now going to talk about it. So the question that keeps coming up, where is this film? So the film, as we just talked before going live, is teeing up to be released at the end of March, early April. And there'll be things on the OGA Athletics Instagram account and other places that'll start to drop a bit more information for people that are following it. So I know there are people a bit frustrated because they want to watch it, but the trailer will be posted here probably this week. I think the soundtrack is dropping tomorrow, and then Walter's going to give you some inside perspective on it from his role as obviously a participant, but an athlete, and obviously for my son too. So
yeah. So I guess I remember, I think George, my brother, we were at Tim Hortons just at Rosewood with Ryan, the producer. And Ryan's he's been an older brother to me. He's just an absolute guy I just always look up to. And his ideas are always just astonishing to me. He's got such great ideas. And him sitting George and I down, we're just having, a nice coffee and a donut as everyone else does at Tim Hortons. And he brings up this idea that hey, like, your old man thinks about doing this bodybuilding. And it kind of hit me, and I was like, you know, I kind of laughed. I thought it was hilarious.
Like any good kid would.
Exactly. So I was like, it kind of like didn't really process with me, and then I was like, okay. And then he was pitching an idea that my brother and I, we would document it when he's out in Vancouver. And I was like, oh wow, like, you're for real about this. Like, you really want to kind of document this whole process. And then that's when it started kind of hitting me that this guy really wants to compete. I wasn't sure exactly where he was going to compete. He just said bodybuilding. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And everyone, you know, I think.
Where were you in your bodybuilding? Have you started to think about competing?
Yeah, so I guess that's one thing. When I heard that news leading up to it, I was huge in the bodybuilding. Like, I wanted to bodybuild and compete in my first show for sure. Like, that was for certain. Like, I loved it so much that I wanted to do it, you know, maybe as a career or just kind of for my own sake. But when I heard that, I was like, okay, that's fair. You know, just a nice local show, nothing too big. Like, that's fine. Like, the Golden Prairie Cup, the Saskatchewan Classic, that's totally fine. And I don't know who told me that it was going to be the amateur Mr. Olympia. But when I heard that, I was like, fuck.
No way.
I was like, I just, like, my whole perspective, and, like, I was just so confused that, like, my old man really thinks he could compete against guys who have been, you know, dedicated their whole life to bodybuilding, that have no corporate gap, no, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, just, they literally live day in, day out, just bodybuilding on the PEDs, and this guy's gonna come in thinking he can catch up 20 plus years of bodybuilding within 6 months. It's like, that's literally impossible. And my whole worry was the image, because the internet's so big now, is that people are going to see this guy on the stage, they're going to see the last name, I'm going to bodybuild. I feel like, you know, it's going to look bad on me. So that's when I started getting, like, really annoyed that you thought you had a chance. That's what kind of bothered me, is because you were...
Watch the thumping yet.
Sorry. You were so... You believed it so much that I was like, I just wanted to kind of just get it to your head that it's impossible for you to win, or just change the perspective that natural bodybuilding is by far all the credit. Like, whoever's the natural bodybuilder, like, you guys are the actors. Like, it's insane. Like, you guys for sure don't look natural, but for someone that can compete against guys that are PEDs within 6 months, it's literally impossible. And it kind of showed at the end of the movie, but that's where the dynamic in the family kind of really changed, is because I
there was no stopping him.
No, there was none. And I just kind of, like, distanced myself from him, because I didn't like the idea. I thought it was just, I don't know, it just really bothered me, because I really wanted to do the bodybuilding and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't want to be selfish to be taken away from it. So I thought the best case scenario was that keep my negative thoughts to myself and I'll just separate myself from him, which kind of sucked, because then we lost that, like, that father-son relationship for quite a bit, which kind of sucked, but it's kind of the way it goes.
So when you saw pictures of your dad, when was your first competition? Like 78, 79?
Yeah, not too far off it, but a little bit later.
You were in shape then. You looked great. You had amazing hair.
I was just gonna say,
it's true, eh?
You looked like a young David Cassidy.
Sean,
and then there was, like you said, a corporate gap in there. Played a lot of sports, and then to make this leap to jump back in. When you told me, I was like, wow, good on you, man. And, you know, to hear it from your perspective, I think is good, because it shows dynamic of family, and it shows, you know, a bit of, no offense here, but selfishness on your part, because you're thinking of you as opposed to thinking of your dad.
Yeah.
And did that change as it went along, and now that you've seen the movie and done your own show and everything else, has your perspective changed and you're like, wow, my dad really like put himself out there and did something, even though he didn't achieve the level that he wanted to. Like there's a certain amount of credit to be given just to have done it.
The credit's for sure there. Like the amount of suffering, like the process he did was a true prep for any bodybuilder. Like the whole dieting, cardio, early mornings, late nights, can't sleep, all that stuff. 100% for sure. That's pure bodybuilding right there. It was just the idea that he could step on that stage, present himself, and win really bothered me because it's not possible. Just the way he looked and the way he started and that huge corporate gap, it just wasn't going to work. And I just wish he would step down and, you know, win like the local show and really compete against, you know, guys instead of going straight to the amateur. Because I just felt, again, like the selfish of me, like I just didn't want to have that image because the internet's, whatever's on the internet's forever. I didn't want to have that, oh, you're that son's dad that thought he could beat these guys, run, you know, insane amount of gear and have all this hard work where he just comes in and kind of makes it look like a joke. You know what I mean? But,
was that your mindset going in? That you were going to win this?
Yeah, that's my question. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think it's in the film. I genuinely wanted to see, because to me it's just math. Like it's a very ruthless but also factual sport, right? Like at the end of the day, you have to qualify.
Camera doesn't lie.
Yeah, well, no, but also the math doesn't lie. So in like Walter said, the classic physique, you have to get in through a height and a weight, and it's a very narrow window. So in theory, you end up apples to apples. So I still maintain, I mean, you can debate whether a statue of David, you know, compared to someone that's on stage today, with that weight, which one is better? A statue of David is how old, right? Like that's, so in my mind when I did it, I did the math and I thought, I knew, like Walter's right, I knew I was up against it in terms of conditioning. Like that was going to be a major issue because it was so condensed. But in terms of the amount of muscle and the way it was put together, I wasn't, in my mind, thinking I'm going to show up with missing body parts. Like at some level, I was more complete than these guys. The conditioning was the part that Walter's right. That was such a moonshot to be able to pull it together. But I also wanted to see if I could do it. And so that at the end of the day, like we talked about the last episode, the morning after was me doing what I could have done at any level. Like that like to Walter's point, that condition I had the morning after, where that would have rated if that had showed up on the day of the show, I mean, who knows, right? It wouldn't have won it for sure. But I achieved what I could have in that window. So yeah, I went into it with this viewpoint that, you know, what's to say that I couldn't pull it all together, the conditioning couldn't drop or whatever, and we'll find out. So I didn't have any illusions about how difficult it was how it was going to be, but also didn't like rule out the fact that it couldn't be competitive. And then, like I said, the most difficult downer part was being on stage, and that was in the last conversation, is that you just realize, like totally out of the league at that point.
Just a question. We've all agreed that we can't turn it off. And you knew that when you committed to this, that you wouldn't be able to turn it off. Did you think at all about what this was going to mean to your family, your relationship, that type of thing? And did that play into the consideration set for
you doing this? Yeah, so there's footage of me sitting in the sauna where I talk about recognizing that it's starting to land and I'm starting to see our dynamic changing and the feedback, right? So like it started to become real. And so then that, again, but this idea, if you can't turn it off, I had committed and I wasn't going to pull out. So the only thing I could do is reframe it, that I had to push harder. Like I was like, okay, well, I better get my shit together because the whole thing is unraveling around me.
But see, that's what I admire, is the dedication, the discipline, and the courage to get up on stage. You know, most guys your age, got a hard time getting out of bed. Honestly, that's true. We swim in a small pool. We think everybody's like us, but that's not true. And the simple fact that you could do that is very impressive, especially the dieting. that separates the men from the boys.
Well, but that's, you know, and so Walter, you did your show after, right?
Yeah. It's like, go ahead.
No, so that I think for me, I was so proud to see, I have no idea whether what I did helped him or not, but I was so proud to see, knowing what that experience is like, that Walter handled it like unbelievable. And I just thought, like, that's the mindset of somebody that can't turn it off. When you go into that rabbit hole, because there's just, it's such a ruthless thing. I mean, you watch around, basically you're walking around in your gotch in front of the whole world to see with lights on you. Like, there's just, there's so many guys and ladies that look what they call gym good. That the difference between gym good and being a bodybuilder on stage, it's night and day. Like, it's just so unforgiving. Because somebody can be so complete all the way, and then all of a sudden they're missing one body part, and the whole thing, like Walter said, just it doesn't fit. And what I was super impressed was when he decided that, you know, I never even, I guess, really would really talk to you about it, but just how confident were you when you decided that you were going to go into it, that you were going to be competitive, and did you have insecurity that it wasn't going to go well, or
when I started my whole bodybuilding prep, I had a professional coach, Chris Harrison. He's based out in Calgary. Great guy, but he kind of used our... I used him.
You didn't use your dad?
No. God, no. No.
just to be clear.
Just to be clear, no.
He only knows rugby.
Yeah. He guided me through the whole diet part, which I always... It's hard to kind of hold yourself accountable to, like... You know, you gotta drop your food. Like, you need someone else to tell you that because it's very hard mentally. But
like, how long after your show was your dieting? Was this part?
Oh man, I don't even know.
It was pretty close.
Because I was gonna say, were you too busy to chime in and say, "Hey man, you know, can I give you some suggestions on dieting?"
No, I learned my lesson from mine. I wasn't going there anyway. And then when this other fellow showed up, I did a bit of research on him. I realized he was the real deal, and I would ask some questions, and very quickly I figured out that he knew what he was doing, so I was like, no, this guy will guide him. But it was the fall of 21 when I competed, and it was the spring of 22 when you did. So it was within 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to know how much overlap you would have been around each other for... Well, I know you kind of took your thoughts to yourself.
Yeah.
But then did you keep to yourself a little bit while he... Obviously, I'm assuming you went and saw the show and whatnot.
No. And I, when he was interested in any kind of feedback, we talked a little bit.
Yeah, barely any feedback. I was just like, I told you so. Pretty much like...
So you were using a fair bit of past tense when speaking about his... And I want to get back to what you did, and I'm not trying to completely change the subject. But you're speaking a lot of past tense that I feel like he was going to this, he was going to that. What do you feel about what he did now? Is it the same pretty much? Like, there's that embarrassment there? Or do you look at it and say, I overreacted, or you reacted... appropriately? Like, how do you feel about that?
I watched the video and I'm like, damn, I was a little bit tough.
That's what we all thought.
I'm sitting here and thinking, damn, you're a little bit tough. But we're all friends here. Listen, I come from a place. My dad was a skydiver early, and if you don't mind me digressing a moment, but my dad, I can relate a little bit to this. Yeah. And a story I didn't tell you guys before, but my dad was a skydiver in the 60s and 70s, and his joke was back when sex was safe and skydiving was dangerous. And then he quit when I came around, and he had competed at a national level in relative work where you fall through the air and make formations. And then he quit, and then in 1994, he took up golfing. In 1994, I did my first skydive, and my mother made him come and watch me skydive, and he did 3 jumps that day. I did 3 jumps, and then him and I skydived together. He never played golf again.
Yeah.
And we skydived together, and as I was learning, Dad was like, oh, this is great. We're going to do relative work together. And he's like, I want to skydive with my kids. And my brother got into it a little bit, and as I was getting better, there was a group of people that were skydiving together, and my dad was always part of the package with me.
Yeah.
And I was in California, and the other people we were learning together with came and said,
you gotta drop the dead weight.
You gotta kick your dad off. And I did, and it was one of the worst. Worst regrets. To the like, I have apologized to my dad for that, but I don't ever like. We were in California. He went off and skydived by himself in he got on the plane. He was on the same plane as us, and we're all doing our thing. And
How did you? Wow.
You're a true competitor.
Jesus,
Ruthless.
man, cut
I needed to move forward, and it was a horrible decision. In hindsight,
how did you explain it to him?
Dad, you're not making the cut.
You're holding me back.
You're not cutting.
I think I said we're. I was pretty. It crushed him. Like my dad is a tough guy, but I knew he just wanted to be down skydiving with his kids. And in hindsight, if I could have gone back, I would have dropped the people I was with. And then approach it. The rest of that trip in California would have been me and my dad skydiving together, and then moving forward, either reconnected with that group or found a different group. But I know what you're feeling a little bit. Like I understand this dynamic, and us kids can be hard on our dads, and I'm sure maybe at some point one of my children are going to do this to me, which would be a karmic. But so I get it. But so it's interesting to sit and listen to this, because you're both in the same sport, with the same goal at way different parts of your life, and it's interesting. I appreciate your perspective.
No, I agree. Like I don't know. It was so when I started my bodybuilding prep. I guess looking back at what he did, it didn't really stick with me for very long. I mean, he did it, and then I kind of just moved on. And I think our relationship went back to normal pretty quick, which was nice. I think that was like the biggest thing I was missing, was just like that father connection. Like I would barely talk to him at dinner. Like it was super like
uncomfortable.
Yeah, literally. It kind of sucked. Like there was no like talking with one another. And then once I was over, reconnecting was nice. But then when I went to my prep, I like surrounding myself with people that can support me and my goals that I'm trying to achieve. And he was a big part of it too, because he understood that. He's not going to eat, chips in front of me and stuff like that. So it was easy, and I just found myself, it was a smooth transition into the bodybuilding for me. And I guess that question was, did I feel insecure? My friends made me feel insecure. They would always say, so when's the prep starting? When I'm like 2 weeks out, you know what I'm saying? So that's like the biggest thing. But other than that, it was a great time. And I love the sport, and I still just enjoy it just for the sake of it. But there are kids in my gym right now that I think are gonna take it up, but we can talk about them later.
Was there a definitive moment where you're like, okay, I'm over kind of being mad at my dad? Or...
Oh yeah. I mean, at one point, like that part was just like where we just kind of separated from one another. Like I could care less at that point, which would kind of sucked. It's like, you want to be that son that just doesn't care about their old man trying to achieve something that's impossible. But it's just, after the end of it, I kind of just let it go. It's in the past. And now it's kind of funny to look back at and say, like, he really did step on the biggest stage of bodybuilding. And it is pretty cool, but just, not the package that he thought.
It doesn't sound like, I mean, maybe at the time, and I'm just surmising, it seemed as though we were embarrassed by it. But in hindsight, you can't be embarrassed by it now, or are you? Like, you don't look back, oh man, it's still cringy.
Still cringy.
Yeah, like if you come out of it looking with a little more respect than you felt during the process.
At the end of the day, no one really cares. Like, no one's gonna look at it. Like, no one from a person walking down the streets would be like, oh, you're that son's dad. That, you know what I mean? So like, I took it way too much in the head, where I was thinking this is gonna like change my whole perspective, my image. And now I look back at it, it's like, you know what, it was a great opportunity, a great experience, like a ton of lessons learned. It changed dynamics in the family, but then again, like, that's just life. Like, I look at life like a book, chapters, and that was just a kind of like a fraction of a chapter, and then we kind of just move on from it, and then you just learn from it, look back at it, laugh at it, learn from it.
It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it's literally how I look at life.
Was there anything you took away from that, like perseverance or commitment? That type of thing that you're trying to embody more now as you move forward? Or,
like from him?
Yeah. During that, like from that whole experience.
Well, I mean, I've literally looked up to this man my whole life. Like, he's the man I am right now because of him. It's like everything he's done, I take and I kind of show it to the people I'm with. And hopefully I'm representing myself well because he's the one that taught me. And looking at how driven he was to one goal, that's kind of where I get my passion and my drive for the goals that I try to pursue now, is where I surround myself with like-minded people. And I like to keep my circles very small, where I don't like to tell people my goals. I like to tell them to people within my circle who can support me and that can kind of drive me to that end goal. And I just find him kind of isolating himself, surrounding himself with like-minded people who support him, kind of wear it on me, where seeing his dedication, it allows me to kind of take that path where I can, craft my perfection in the sport or the goal I'm trying to create. But
I think I know the answer to this, but it's sometimes intimidating to grow up under the shadow of a successful parent.
Yeah.
And your dad's been very successful in sports.
Yeah.
Very successful in business.
Yeah.
Was that something that discouraged you or incented you to do more, do better, or was it
pressure?
Yeah, because you see the things your dad did when you were in Singapore. He was playing national level rugby. Was that something aspirational, or was that man, I can never live up to this guy? And you're in finance now, you're competing, all this stuff. So I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear your perspective on how you viewed this.
There was a point in my life where I was a little bit confused where I want to be in life. And I just found that, being 20, unsure where you want to be kind of really honed on me because, Dad's kind of he moved out to Singapore when he was 20. He kind of had his life figured out. So when I was 20 in finance, I don't know what path I want to take with where I want to be. So that pressure did kind of fall on me. But, I just find if you give yourself an opportunity to open doors for yourself, I think it's an easier path for you to find that, that true self. And I think the pressure that I got from Dad wasn't really there most of the time. I mean, when it comes to hockey, he for sure kind of barked at me, but I just feel that just made me
that's another episode altogether.
That's just made me the person I am today. I put my mind over my feelings, so it's kind of, I didn't feel a great amount of pressure from him. If anything, I just kind of used that and found my own path to create the path I wanted for myself. So
So that contest of yours, what did you find most difficult? Was it the training, the dieting, or getting on the stage?
Training was the best part. I love training. That's the easy part. It's the dieting that sucks. When your coach texts you, I was literally, I think, 4 weeks out. I was having 1,305 calories, and 80 grams of carbs. You should see the meals I was eating. I would have to have ground beef, so lean ground beef. I would cook it. I would then put it in water and boil it to get all the fat out, and no salt, nothing, and broccoli on the side. That was my life for 18 weeks.
So did you find that tested the depths of your
everything?
The thing with that wasn't that challenging for me because I'm not trying to boost my own ego, but whenever I thought about cheating, I just thought about stepping on stage, and it made it so much easier to literally get through that, those cravings. It definitely hurt relationships. I had a partner back then, and that stuff does fuck with your mind. Yeah. When you're fucking...
It's all you think about.
Literally, when you're 19 and you just your testosterone's when you're fucking 92, it's you're waking up with nothing. You know what I mean? You don't have a heart on nothing. It sucks. So it sucks when you're 19, and then just kind of having that goal, it just made things easier for me. I don't know.
How many of your buddies ever trained that hard?
All of my buddies train hard, but they just don't have they're not passionate about them just like me.
No, it's this level.
Making weight.
Making weight is the...
No, none of them have.
That separates the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
Making weight is a real...
UFC fighters do it yourself.
Making weight must have been... Any sport where you have to make weight, it's just wrestling, boxing. It's just ridiculous.
Plumbs the depths of your resolve.
Yeah.
I got to pick on Troy Shear on the weight. Sorry, I interrupted the quietest guy at the table here with the most wisdom.
No, you
my
keep
apologies.
Going,
Troy Shear, my dear friend, I think you've trained at Shear's a little bit.
Yeah,
my brother does, and you're doing it right now. He'll hopefully be on the show that one day, but you're talking about your dad not eating chips. This is directed directly at you, Troy Shear. drive to Lethbridge for a fight, and we've all been dieting. There's 4 of us in the truck there fighting in Troy. Where'd you pull over, Troy? Dairy Queen. He's eating that, and it's weigh-in day. It's Friday. Like, we got to weigh in Friday night, fight Saturday. And we can't even drink water.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. He's eating in the truck. So it is nice to have that support.
Yeah, 100%.
Sensei Troy.
You got to surround yourself with a group that supports. Otherwise, you're defaulting to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the things that we both know, and it's in the film too. Or no, it's not in the film. We talked about it in the last episode. But I think when Walter and I both decided that we weren't, just no point to force it. That's when just say like, okay, I had to buckle down with my mental capacity and my version of support. He needed to do his thing, and it's funny. Like I think. Whatever you've got your bike racing, and I mean all these different things. Like I think at some stage, to your point, when you have to dig deep, you really, really close ranks. Like I just it's a survival thing, but it's also a focus thing, and it's nice obviously if you can close ranks with one other person or 2 other. But I think the reality is when people really push the bounds of athletics, whatever that is. That final group, it's going to be small. Like it's just, there's a lot of people that are supportive, they like it, but when it comes down to when it's a 24-hour, 7 days, when it's all consuming, it's the only thing that you're thinking of in preparation or you're doing. Very, very few people are willing to really get inside that circle with you. And I think that's the other thing I've learned over like my life is I used to get angry with people. Like I used to be slighted or like I'd have an opinion about someone not.
Why don't you like me?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, like why don't you want to join me in this?
Why aren't you like me?
Yeah, why aren't you like me?
You hear about this on professional sports teams where you've got maybe that alpha that is the leader that's pushing everyone and saying, you need to be the last guy on the ice or you need to be putting in this amount of reps and. You hear the great leaders on teams that elevate everyone else just because of that.
So, I mean, I think Walter's, to me, what he's, because where I wanted to kind of go on this thinking was these things that you've done, whether it's hockey, bodybuilding, now rugby, I think that you're turning out to be, I'm biased obviously, but I think you're turning out to be a leader of people to some degree. But how do you think that those 3 activities, like at an athletic level, have bled over to the way you carry yourself in life in general? Like, I mean, it's just like we talked a little before. I don't think there's a balance here. I think there's a blend. Like 100%. Each one of us here, our entire lives are defined by this blend between a lifetime of athletic pursuit and everything else. Like, there's no separating the two. And I think you're already down that path. That's why you're here today as a young guard. But like, how do you take the stuff that you push yourself on, and then whether it's at Nutrient or school or like, how does that stuff? Come up.
Are you only that way in the gym?
Yeah, no,
or are you
that's no way.
in every aspect of your life?
The way I handle everything, like with my professionalism in all those 3, I carry that with me everywhere I go. Like. When it's in corporate, I show myself, as a person that knows time management, discipline, make sure tasks are undone or on time. Just carry myself like the person I am in those 3 aspects of like my athletic career. So that's the big thing that I take away is just showcasing that I was a leader in those areas. I take initiative in corporate roles and even just being a nice person in general. I just find that I get along with people in those areas. I'm always willing to kind of lend a helping hand, and it's kind of helped me turn that into my, everyday life where I'm always kind of just that person where you can go up to and have a chat. And I just find I carry myself very well because of those 3 activities.
Discipline is such a transferable skill set, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And that parlays into personal life and professional life, everything that you do.
Yeah. And there's an element of suffering, especially with dieting and when it's self-inflicted suffering. The dieting part in particular, I think all of us enjoy. I don't know. I mean, it's probably leading up some of the races. Maybe sometimes it gets to be a bit of a grind, but it's a grind that you love. But the dieting part, no one's like, "Oh man, I'm looking forward to that." And then you do this self-inflicted. I don't know, some of the longer distance stuff, maybe it gets where you feel the urge to quit.
Yeah.
But once you've put yourself through it, I always said, well, I try to put myself through more hell self-imposed in any given day than anyone else can ever think to give me.
Yeah.
And like that's what I hear about with the, particularly the dieting and the discipline that goes along with everything, or the goals that everyone at this table have got. And that carries through with everything, I think.
No, definitely.
So it goes back to this idea of, again, you were kind of my role model growing up, seeing you do this stuff, right? So like you talk about consistency and all that, and I'd see him and pictures of you doing different things on the walls at Ironworks, and then so I guess the question is, for you're starting this journey. So we said one of the things about being part of the OGA athletics community is you have a metric you have to meet. Like you have to put in the time. Like there's no other way. You can't spend money. You can't jump it because you're more talented. So you put in arguably 10,000 hours already. Like you said, you've been doing your athletics since you were about 10 years old, 22, 12 years, roughly 10,000 hours. So you're an expert as an athlete. Do you see that this is going to be with you for the rest of your life? Like there's no way to turn this off, or is it a possibility that maybe in my 30s I'll take a break, chips and put my feet up and collect I just cash my money?
For me, I love my time, I love my routine, I love my space, and for me to break that for something has to be extremely special for me to break that. And I just find I will be carrying that whole can't turn off, like literally the rest of my life. Like I put myself through stuff that I don't want to, just because I know that what I do right now will translate to what I want in the end. So like I am putting that 1%. Like till this day, I still eat 300 grams of rice, 360 grams of rice post workout. Like
crazy.
I weigh my food since my first bodybuilding show. Like that's never changed. And starting next Monday, I will now be subtracting food so I can get down to like that summer body. So like I am breathe this whole idea of
me
just,
too.
this whole idea of just perfecting my craft in anything I do, and then that comes in school, corporate, athletic abilities. I just don't think that's just how I've been programmed. Again, thanks to like my old man and my mother, who've all like raised me. That's just how I am as a person, and that's how I'll carry myself till.
Is part of this about how you look, how you feel, how strong you want to be, how it makes you feel? Like, what's the secret sauce for you?
Me? Well, I guess as a 22-year-old, it's the way you look. It's pretty awesome.
Look better naked.
Like that's pretty nice. But just like the mental clarity, I just find like the things I do is just so much more clear. Back when I was I was in a pretty tough place when I was playing near my end of my hockey career. Like I wasn't enjoying it, so like my mental clarity was pretty foggy. Like I was in a pretty deep rabbit hole, but like coming out of that and doing the things I love, everything just seems more clear. I see a path to my goal, and again like thanks to the man upstairs, like just believing that he can take care of me at the end of the day. It's just kind of where I find myself.
Are you thinking about playing rugby like sevens? Maybe
that's
Olympics?
So yeah, like I guess the ultimate goal for me for rugby is LA Olympics sevens. Only problem is Canada men's sevens is a little bit behind compared to the other teams, but the ultimate goal is to play Olympics at that level.
Nice.
And then again, like just
Singapore.
Our team Singapore, live out there for 3 years. But yeah, like ultimate goal Olympics for rugby, but I've got a ton of other goals that I like to just keep to myself and then work my way out there, and then that's like the trophy, which would be nice. But yeah.
One of the things I loved about Schwarzenegger, and he was an idol, growing up for me, is he used visualization.
Yeah,
and saw himself on stage or saw himself in front of a movie camera, that type of thing. How do you incorporate that into your practice?
Mental reps. I mean, like, that's the biggest thing. I get it from all my coaches that mental reps is the best reps you can possibly give yourself off the ice, on the ice, wherever you are, just in life in general, just mental reps of, presenting that corporate, presentation to the VP, stepping on stage, mastering the routine in your head. Just, everything is mental. If you can't do it mentally, you're effed. Like, your mind is so powerful that you need to be putting your feelings aside and your mind as a priority in order to, visualize the best person you can possibly be. And again, like Arnold even said, like, there's no such thing as a plan B. There's only plan A. And that's when you're visualizing that plan A and, succeeding to that end goal. So that's huge for me.
So being 21?
22.
22.
Yeah.
So you're young.
Turning 23. And
there's lots of temptations and such. So I'm going to put you on the spot a bit. But how are you for drinking booze? And
that's the one thing. Like, my friends nag at me. It's like, I don't go out very often on the weekends. Like, I like to, I'm with, like, the same as my brother. My brother, you've met him. Like, he's a,
I see him at the gym a fair bit.
He's a freak, and he doesn't do anything but just stays home, watches anime, does schoolwork. He's a genius. He's a smart kid, and doesn't train.
And he's jacked beyond belief.
I always nag at him. Like, he's all this athletic abilities, and he just doesn't use it. But that he can come on here and talk his shit. Anyways, but boozing, all that stuff, I kind of keep that on the down low. Like, I have this one trick where if I do go out, I'll buy one seltzer. I only drink seltzers because low in calories, no carbs. I only drink one seltzer.
That's the thing,
And I'll carry it for the whole night. And someone asks me, well, let me get you. I'm like, no, it's my sixth one. It's like my first one. It's a flat seltzer. It tastes like acid.
So does the bar.
Okay, well, you know what I mean. But temptations for that stuff, like, it doesn't bother me. I mean,
what, you don't want to speak specifically, but what's the pressure to use PEDs like in your generation?
It's just so funny. My buddy literally texted me yesterday. He's like, the temptation to take PEDs right now is so tempting, but
is it easier to get than ever before?
100%.
Anytime, yeah.
Easy. I could literally go to my family doctor right now, or anywhere, just even online. There's like a place called, I forgot what it's called, but you can get PEDs like in an instant. It's so easy. And I know a guy that literally has his trend in his palms, but he's scared to take it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so easy for people like me, but for myself, like, look in the mirror, like, I don't think I'd ever need it. I mean, like, if you can prioritize, it's really up to you. If you really want to look, good, then you prioritize your food you eat. You prioritize your sleep, because sleep is the best drug you could possibly get.
That's the wise man at the end.
100%.
Repeats this all the time.
30 minutes off your phone before bed, 8 hours minimum. I mean, sleep is literally the best drug you can give yourself.
Jesus.
So sleep for me, and then just, it's consistency. So PEDs for me is like, not in my books.
Well, your peer group though, like any of the other, do you have friends that you lift with, and not, throw them anyone under the bus.
No.
But your group's generally a pretty clean group, or a few guys here and there.
I don't know anyone in my group that's on PEDs. It's easy to tell if someone is, but everyone in my group is pretty.
And so for those that don't know, I know Walter's group really well because they're all at Ironworks. You've seen some of them.
Yep.
These guys are so impressive. Like, yeah. I've seen them when they all joined, and then where they are now. This has been 5 years
since like COVID. I brought them all to Ironworks, and now it's just their second home.
5 years, right?
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. And so I not that my opinion really matters, but my comment always to Walter, and then maybe it goes back in, is, you look at how these guys have changed dramatically, but not just changed in terms of like on the visual, but their performance. I mean, these guys, and I've told them that, I think I said it maybe on the last episode, but I was just in Dubai at the most famous gym there, this Beanos, and these guys would roll into Beanos today, not on the gear, and tear that place apart. Because they know how to train, they understand their bodies, their work ethic is like off the chart, the consistency, because without the gear, there's no way to look like this, or what they've achieved, or his brother George, unless you just stack up day after day after day after day. It takes much longer, but you don't have that slippery scale or whatever, slippery slide that goes back as soon as you're off it. At this age, right? Like,
well, and I wanted to ask too, like, there's such a culture of instant gratification right now.
Yeah, I know.
It just feels like, you know, I kind of see it in my boys. They go to the gym for 2 days and think that they should be 205 and look like Jay type of thing. But how did you set yourself up mentally so you didn't fall into that instant gratification trap, because it's so easy to go into?
Well, everyone wants that dopamine effect, like that instant dopamine, and with the gym, that's just, there's no such thing as that. I mean, your dopamine's your 2 hours if you're that pump, I guess. But when it comes to like crafting your piece, your body, it takes, again, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's like the best part is just taking pictures of yourself in the mirror. It's just like, you can see the progress you make, and it's just, I just found myself, I've always taken one step with how like my physique's looking, and there's just no reason for me to, find that instant gratification, because I don't know.
Good on you. It's commitment and discipline, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Anything worth having takes time and hard work.
Exactly. I mean, you have to, like, again, like 10,000 hours, you have to put in the time. Like, it's, if it was easy, everyone would do it, you know what I mean? And then again, with PEDs, the health risks that come with that is just toxic. It's, you're literally suicide at the end of the day. Like, you're killing yourself.
Well, and again, at this age, when you guys already have like super high testosterone, there's no point to shut it off.
Yeah.
Like when you get older, when we're like this way, then that's the real conversation. But for you guys, it makes no sense. Plus the character building and all that stuff. I think kind of back to the whole OGA athletics and the pipeline, I find when I'm in the gym, I'm inspired when I see these guys tearing it up. Because I'm thinking, okay, this is the pure way. This is the way, and maybe they can see you guys, right, when you're in there, and they're like, okay, if you keep going, you look like the mini Hulk at this age, right? By the way, he turns 50.
That's nuts.
So on 50 on March 8th, he's going for 1,200.
1,200 what?
Total.
For bench dead squat.
Holy shit.
How cool is that? So
it's a high bar.
Huh?
But
you're going to get it, because we're going to film it. It's going to be, to discuss, we'll have an episode. It's going to be on Instagram. 1,200 at 50.
That's unbelievable. That's ridiculous.
Isn't it cool?
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, I was saying that, so the not turning it off part, and I was telling Mike just before we started on this, and one of the things, my business partner, I was explaining what my goal of this was, and he said, well, how close are you? And I said, I'm getting there. And he said, if you're able to do it before your birthday, would you do it? And I said, no, because then I won't have been 50 and have done it. I would have been 49 and did it, which means I was in my 40s and it doesn't count.
100%.
So in my head, I have to be 50 to complete this task. And I've picked my birthday to do that. So
all of that.
So March 8th, but the other cool part that you don't know is, if you can believe it, he doesn't look like it. He has a slightly different physique than Lance Armstrong. For those that are watching the video,
one more testicle.
You might be a nicer. I shouldn't say this, but it seems like you might be a nicer human being than him too. But physique-wise, look at this guy.
Oh man, it's
okay, but it's not a cyclist build. But he's doing cycling too, so he's building towards March 8th for 1,200. At the same time, he's doing distance bike racing now.
Yeah.
So this weekend, right?
Yeah, on Saturday at 57K, 3,000 meters
Elevation.
I'm trying to think. No, it's 3,000 feet. I think it's I don't know what it is. I gotta climb. It's 57K on a fat bike in the mountains at Cranbrook. It's called Cold Ride, and it's my first race. I don't know. I've
jumping right in.
I've certainly ridden that distance on a fat bike before, but you can never get the climbing in.
Well, the fat bikes are like the big tires.
4.5-inch tire on them. So I don't know what to budget for my.
Are you packing a block with you when you're going to Bears?
They're hibernate, man.
But this is the cool part, right? Like
mountain lions don't though.
Mixing the two, right? Like you could say no, I'm only doing one of these, but you can't turn it off. So say no, I want to
Well, not turning it into the Jay Show again, but no, when I competed at Worlds in 2003, in the fall of 2003, I went to called pond swooping, the very first Worlds in Paris, California, and I went down.
Is it for skydiving?
Skydiving, jump out of the airplane, we open our parachute right away, and then we have to fly where our feet break this imaginary line there between two gates, enter a course, and then go through there's a course for speed, a course for distance, and then there's another accuracy course. And there's 80 competitors from all over the world, and I get down there, and there's a heat wave, and it was supposed to be a 3-day competition. We made it go to 5 because it was too hot to skydive in the afternoon. But what was happening in the meantime is 2 months after that competition was my first MMA fight.
Wow.
So I didn't really have a coach for the skydiving thing. It was very new, and we were figuring out as we went. But I got a little bit just inside my head. I was nervous, and I phoned Al Lovell, who was my coach that I worked with a lot at Shears Martial Arts, and I phoned him to talk me down for my skydiving competition a little bit and said, man, well, there's a lot of pressure here. And it's funny because those two, so I've been in this situation before where there's two competing things. It's like a beta blocker would probably be a performance enhancing drug. In skydiving, we need to be calm, we need to be whatever. And then with the MMA fight coming up is like, let's make sure I can go as hard as possible for 10 minutes, right? The amateur MMA fights are 2 5-minute rounds. So I've been here before where you have these competing
these are
things.
These are slightly different activities.
Slightly different things. So like I just had my last leg day yesterday before, and then I'll have to budget riding a little bit just to keep warm, and have this. So it's I don't know. It's kind of fun having more than one thing going on, but
but again, right? Also, even at the age though, like you can think through this. I think that's the cool part, right? Like the experience you built allows you to kind of navigate this a bit.
It's doable. You just have to plan it out.
Got it up here.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
elevation is going to be a challenge.
The breathing on it too, and the climbing, and I'm really estimate. Like I've been going out and trying to ride in like on the worst surfaces here. There's just no other way to train for that thing. It's like I could ride on the road where it's clear or through slushy snow, and I just got to pick the slushy snow and whatever else. But it's just mental. Is just get through it, and then I guess there is some physical part because I've definitely prone to cramping if I don't get the electrolytes, which is a whole game. I'm sure you figured out.
You've got a coach right here.
I know. Well, the some of the nutrition stuff for this is like your advice for nutrition for another cyclist, and maybe you know more about this than me. I am brand new, so I guess there's a question. But I know from the advice you took for your nutrition for bodybuilding wouldn't have worked necessarily for him because different body types, and like I've got buddies that they'll ride for 2 or 3 hours before they eat or drink anything, and that's not me. Like, would that be your opinion?
No, I'm more of a constant hydrator, eater, and the biggest challenge I've run into is salt. And I was taking electrolytes, but it still wasn't enough. And then I got into salt tabs, and that changed my life.
I'm thinking about that. I don't know. I might have to.
But that was in heat, so I don't know if you're going to have the same problem.
Just don't experiment at the race.
No. Diarrhea halfway through. Oh, those weren't a good idea.
Balance on the way up.
I need to have one apology to. It is clear. Troy Shear is a phenomenal coach. He's gonna
Shears Martial Arts, stay away.
Shears Martial Arts. No, Troy was using mental toughness on us for that one. He's a very good friend of all of the fighters, and that's what the story I was telling is a little bit of a. We were all teasing each other about that. So I just want to be very clear that it wasn't a knock towards Troy or Shears Martial Arts. I grew up in that gym with under him and his dad. Phenomenal place to go, phenomenal coaching and mental toughness on the day of your fight.
And also, when you talk about Al that you called, that was actually
Al
from Shears
Martial Arts is the reason I trained with Al, who became one of my best friends, as has Troy, as times has gone on. I worked nights at O'Shea's, and Troy taught mostly nights with the guys, and then Al was available in the daytime and Troy wasn't, so I ended up doing that, and I got they have very different styles, both those guys, and so it was kind of a neat thing to learn from both of them.
Well, and I'm there now.
George is he still there?
No, I'm trying to get him back, but And then Walter's been in and out a little bit. So, yeah, no, it's a great place.
Well, Troy speaks very highly of you and your brothers. I was telling him about us coming on here, and he said he was excited to hear what you had to say.
Such a humbling experience going there. Oh, my God. I went in with George just to roll, and all of a sudden this is jiu-jitsu. Yeah, he's taking my gi and cinched me. I'm like, holy fuck, I have to tap.
Like, this is your little brother.
Exactly.
Like, he's little as in he's younger than you. And he's
younger, smaller, 100, like, I'm like 40 pounds heavier, and it's just all of a sudden he's cinching me with my gi, and I have to tap or I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
So, it's
humbling.
It is.
Jiu-jitsu's got to be one of the just...
Oh my God.
Especially for bigger guys like us, because you go in and that ego is sore to put down.
Oh my gosh.
And the littlest guy, like I just remember Wilf Betts was so good at jiu-jitsu, and he had some good MMA fights, and he was one of Troy's students. And this kid, good looking, like just sitting in the bar at O'Shea's one day, sitting on a date, and there's a whole bunch of big guys in there. I remember going up to one of my friends and go, "Who do you think the toughest guy in this bar is right now?" And it's just Wilf Betts with his heel hook sitting there. He's like dressed nice and everything. He's the smallest guy. No one would have picked him, but I'm fully confident he would have been rolled through any guy in there. And it just, you don't know. And he didn't have cauliflower ears either, which made him even more dangerous. 'Cause you just don't know.
So I'm in there now, and Jason Bepke is helping me on this journey of jiu-jitsu, and same thing, right? His telltale thing is he's got cauliflower. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, physically he's my height, but he's smaller. And just the right personality. He's humble, right? All this, and just a cold stone killer, and like the humbleness that exudes from these guys.
But all the shears, so purple belts, and brown belts. I don't know what happens to they get weeded out. The assholes get weeded out before they get to the brown and the purple belts. Because I don't know any of the guys who have achieved beyond the blue belt in jiu-jitsu, which I've not got there yet. I was trained for MMA, so I never belted, and it's one of the regrets in life. But the guys that you go to work with, and as an older guy who's injured now and stuff like that, I want to see Jesse and Jason and those guys, because they're gonna humble me without hurting me. Yeah. The younger guys do both, but yeah, they're unassuming. You almost look at when being a big strong guy, you're gonna show me how to fight, and then within seconds, you realize I should have just not even thought that.
It's nuts.
So just looking at the time here, and maybe kind of pull it all the way back. We talk about a lot of things today, but I think maybe Mike's comment earlier, I don't know if it was on air or not, but you're here representing a particular generation, and obviously this younger concept.
Yeah.
If you were to leave that group that's listening, right, wondering if they're a young guard athlete or wanting to be, or they're just starting out, I mean, maybe a piece of advice, or maybe just a piece of advice, or maybe a book or something you've read.
Oh yeah.
Talk about not being able to turn it off, and that people aren't alone out there, and we're not all freaks.
Yeah.
Do you feel that amongst your peers, like with your friends, that you're a little bit different than them because you just take it that extra? You said that little extra work in the gym and that sort of. Do you feel that way?
My friend group, yeah. I do find myself like I literally will work my day around the gym, so like that's a little different. But there's this another kid. His name's Nick. Like I hope he's the one kid I want to see. Like this kid's fucking insane. I've never met someone that's so ginormous, and he's natural, but like this kid is so big, and I swear he will be the best bodybuilder coming out of Saskatchewan. Like this kid is next level. Like I think
it could be that if he stays on this path, he could be as influential as Bumstead in a natural way.
It's ridiculous. But this is like you guys, if you guys ever meet him, or if he ever comes here. But anyways,
what's his Instagram?
It's Nick Lorenzo. That's his whole name, Nick Lorenzo. His dad used to go down and works. Is your Oh, but his dad used to go down and works. Like I don't know if you guys ever met him, but
his Instagram is what, Lorenzo Lifts.
Lorenzo something lifts, but he's a teacher, but just massive teacher. Just
what a great role model too. Like he's such a humble, but his discipline.
Yeah.
And when the two of them, actually, the joke for our generation is, when I see the two of them training, because they have the same mullet or whatever's going on there, the same mustache. No, yeah. But so what I joke about is, do you remember in our old days the Barbarian Brothers?
Yeah.
These are the Barbarian Brothers, but with this kind of look. It is so funny. Like I can't, sometimes when they're training together, I can't tell which was which. But it's just, these guys, like, it's the most pure form of bodybuilding in action. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
And you guys exclusively lift at Ironworks?
Yeah. Him and I.
It's
together.
home. It's home.
Right?
It literally is. But I don't know, like, one advice I'd give to, like, anyone that can turn it off is just continue to find something that you enjoy and continue to just perfect that craft where you just can't turn it off. You know what I mean? Just always find something that you can always strive to get better. Always find a reason to you can't turn it off. And there's never an ending goal. Never be satisfied. There's no quick dopamine. There's no gratification. It's just enjoy the ride. And I always tell myself this: stop and smell the roses. It's the one saying I got from Chris Bumstead and just from other influencers that I follow. But stopping to smell the roses kind of means that life moves so fast that you don't look around. You don't realize the people around, that no one's here forever. You only have one life, X amount of weeks. So just stop, chill out, smell the roses, enjoy life, presence, and then kind of care from there. Because I just find people get so worked up, even myself. I get too worked up about the future, past, that I don't,
Still happens, man.
Literally, and I just
I
sometimes...
got bad news for you.
Exactly.
But at least you're thinking about that.
Exactly. So I just think, learn to never turn it off, but always just take time to find that time to, smell the roses, stop and smell the roses, and just appreciate life. And because life's beautiful. Like, fuck, it's nice. I mean, who would have thought it'd be, here with you guys and appreciate. I mean, it's just, life has reasons to be, bring us all together, and it's a domino effect. So.
Amen.
Well said.
It's a pretty good way to end it, eh?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
For
Thanks,
those,
Walter.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Appreciate it, man. That's just been wonderful. For those that
Cheers.
can't turn it off, we'll be back with another episode. So yeah, thanks a lot. And,
Any teasers for the next episode? Are we that far?
Well, like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about the film coming up and some people that were probably part of that. But I also think we're on the street as we're going to have our first female old guard athlete coming up, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, that'll be all in the next couple of weeks. So, all right, until next time.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.